You are tuned in to a Fireside chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
One? Well, I think we're on. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. This is really going to be a zany show tonight for a number of reasons, which I won't tell you because there won't be any show. We'll be telling you stories all night. So this is a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. My guest tonight is an old friend of mine from Australia, Liz Miller, and she is a very wonderful DJ and artist and healer, vibrational healer, radio announcer, and she has had her own show here, which was called Otherwhere. She hosts a group on Yahoo, also by that name, called Otherwhere. And she has a wonderful, rich voice that will be much more interesting than mine. So let's welcome her to the show now. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi, Lance. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Going up and down and up and down.
Well, it's nice to hear you on your show again. I haven't heard your voice for a while, so thank you for having me on the show today. And how are you?
Well, I'm good. I had kind of an epiphany on June 21st, the summer solstice.
Yes.
And I don't know if you felt those energies as much as I did, but I don't usually tune into those things. But I saw something that was very much like the Northern Lights. And the next day, everything was different energetically, and I made some changes, and nothing's been the same since. It seems like synchronicities are speeding up, and so on and so forth. So,
well, the solstice is a time when energies are generally shaken up, and things that aren't working for us tend to be re-examined, and if the environment is right, then they get dropped. They drop away, and we kind of move onto a path that is much more in alignment with our our soul's purpose here on the planet. So there's been a lot of shaking up lately, and I certainly felt it. I know a lot of people here in Melbourne, friends of mine, who are not even really that inclined spiritually, who've gone through a similar process and not really understood what was happening to them, but it was certainly affecting them. So yes, tell me about these Northern Lights.
Well, I was outside by the campfire with friends up in Georgetown in California, and so we were all sitting around the campfire. The bats had come out already, and the stars were out. And one of my friends, who's a part Native American Indian, said, "Do you see those the light streamers of light?" And I looked up and saw what appeared to be rays or bands of light. They looked like, if you imagine what the Statue of Liberty looks like with a crown, they were in a reverse of that, so that the thinnest part was over the horizon of the mountain, and it would expand in rays that were coming out from the same point. And it was just a very subtle, light, etheric energy. So it wasn't a searchlight, and it wasn't city lights or anything like that. And then as we watched it, it shifted so that the source of the light moved, and then it changed shape and started to make not straight lines, but it separated from the source of where it was coming from, and then it formed almost like an S. And we watched it for a while, and then we got back into our campfire and our merrymaking. But we both saw it, and it was unmistakable. I mean, it was like nothing I'd ever seen.
That sounds really beautiful. At the time, what did you think of it? What did you get an instant sort of sense of what this light was?
Well, it was so different than anything I'd seen. I felt like it was etheric energy, that it was some kind of, it just felt like it was some kind of higher vibration. And I had a reading by one of my guests who was on a couple of weeks ago, Christina Keene, and she channels a being named Sophia. And Sophia said that it was my way of being contacted, that it was a contact. And, you know, some people see spaceships, other people see lights, other people see extra celestials or orbs, and I have seen orbs here lately too. But this was a form of contact for me, and it was a validation that, you know, that I was on the right track.
Well, that's wonderful, and I would tend to agree with what she said. People do have different experiences. I think it is dependent sometimes on where your level of consciousness is at and what you're willing to accept. You know, I think about all of those biblical stories where interdimensional beings were seen to be angels or demons, or different types of entities, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was exactly right. So that's wonderful. And since then, how has that affected you?
Well, it made a very strong impact the first couple of weeks, and now it's kind of evened out. But what I notice is that there's a different level of awareness. And I want to use the word consciousness, but that's such a elusive term, and everybody understands it differently. So, it did seem that there was a different level of awareness after that, and it was quite different. It was like, you know, kind of taking a little step up the ramp.
And can you sort of be more specific about what that means for you?
It seemed like I was attracting information about, I'm sensing things more on an intuitive level, and for instance, making shifts diet-wise. My diet has been pretty lousy for somebody who's in an awakening process, but all of a sudden, after that, it was like I cooked some brown rice. It was delicious. I was in love with it, and I started eating vegetables, and I was just, the smells and the aroma, and oh my God, what have I been missing? And, you know, for years I've resisted anything like that at all. I eat sauces and grease and butter and meat and steak and baked potatoes and all the rest of it, but all of a sudden, boom, that happened, and then I had been drinking periodically, not a lot, but a little bit, and the next day I stopped. I just completely stopped, and it was very important to have a clear head, to be able to know totally what's going on and what's real. And it reminded me of some of my earlier epiphanies that I've had over the years where it was important to have a clear head.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because, you know, all of those things are hallmarks of being in alignment with your higher self and being directed by the impulses of that part of you that, you know, wants to keep your vibration high. So that's wonderful, especially the food part. I can definitely relate to that.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, and then we're coming up on some more shifts in the near future. Of July 21st and 22nd, there's supposed to be a major event.
We've got the longest eclipse in this century.
Yes.
And we've also got the, within 6 hours of the eclipse, we have the perigee, which is when the moon is closest to the Earth. And, you know, that's also a very, very rare occurrence. So we've got a triple whammy of eclipses. There's, let's see, I have to get this right. I'm pretty sure there's one lunar eclipse and 2 solar eclipses. And the one on the 22nd is the really big one. And you know, I saw an eclipse many years ago, and the time of totality was only 32 seconds, very brief period of time. But that 32 seconds really changed my life.
Oh, my.
So I think it would be really fantastic for anybody who is able to see the eclipse this time around. And I believe that the path of totality is crossing Japan and parts of China, and I think possibly parts of Russia. Please, I don't know if those are exactly the right places, but I know definitely Japan is one of the places where the path of totality is crossing. So, yeah, I really wish I could see this one. It'd be fantastic. And whenever there are eclipses, transformations occur on the Earth. Some of those transformations, in a similar way to the solstice, can really shake things up. And there has been a history of earthquakes being connected to eclipses. There's a researcher called Jim Birkeland, who's based in the US, who's done some very groundbreaking, pardon the pun, research into this area. But it's also, the eclipse also brings in massive amounts of transformative energy on a positive level. And so, considering how this year has been going so far, and it seems like, you know, from the very beginning of the year, we've just had, bam, one thing after the other, in terms of astronomical alignments and gateways, like the 7-7, and we had some earlier ones as well, where we feel as though there are some star alignments that are going on, bringing in particular types of supportive energies onto the planet that we can then align with if we choose to. This triple eclipse happening at this time is really just like, wow, okay, buckle in. We've been kind of preparing all year so far for some things to be moving, and they have been, but now, you know, we've got some really major stuff happening, and I think a lot of it is connected to the energy of the divine feminine.
Yes, that would make a lot of sense. It's kind of like I'm waiting for the 4th of July, and I want to see the fireworks, but the 4th of July is already over, and I'm still waiting for the fireworks. You know what I mean? And I want to see this, you know, taking place in the world at large, and of course, it doesn't happen the way that we think that it's going to happen, and we don't always see changes in the world, although everybody feels it. You know, you see connections, but I think that we're reaching a point where there are going to be some major shifts that everyone will be completely aware of and will feel personally. And there's also...
I think that those major shifts have certainly been happening already. You know, when we think about the economic shifts, the global climate shifts, those are things that are happening and people are really aware of. So there are things definitely moving now, and as these old structures, especially around the economy, have been crumbling, I know that there's been an emergence of new solutions coming forward with the environment as well, and so it'll be wonderful to see those new technologies, those new ways of approaching some of the challenges that we're all facing as one humanity are addressed. But I get the feeling that you're sort of talking about different sorts of indicators, maybe to do with people's inner selves and their awareness of their own selves as spiritual beings. Is that what you meant?
Yes, and it seems like for that to occur, there almost has to be a leveling of the playing field, and part of that seems to be, from what I can tell, is the global financial collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been following the work of the site Half Past Human and the WebBot technologies?
Actually, I have been very casually. I haven't spent a lot of time. It's Cliff High. Yeah. I haven't spent a lot of time looking into his material, but I've kept sort of tabs on it from a distance. So if you know a bit more about what he's been finding out about, please let me know. Let us know.
Yeah. I just recently purchased one of their reports, and it's quite elucidating. It's the most striking thing about it is that there is supposed to be sometime around October, November, a collapse of the U.S. dollar. Now, the funny thing about that is that around November 4th or 9th, I think it is, we move from the Mayan 6th day into the 6th night, and that's traditionally the time when we move into the darkest period. And I think that the last time we moved into the 5th night, when we had the 5th night, that was the beginning of the collapse when all the banks were failing, and it didn't complete itself. It's kind of like the hippie movement in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s, and so on, is getting replayed now, and it's a shorter period of time, and it's not looking like what I thought it would, but the financial collapse hasn't really reached its finale. So I think that around November that there's going to be some major shifting of the economy and the loss of the American dollar, and that's what their predictions or the psychic elements seem to indicate, that we're picking up the psychic vibes of the future, and then it's coming out in the languaging, which gets analyzed. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. You know, we are standing on the precipice of an entirely new era. There's no doubt about that. And with that comes a new way of living and existing within linear time and space. And so when it comes to money and the way that we've approached money and all of that, obviously there needs to be massive transformations there. It'll be really interesting to see whether or not there's anything to that piece of news.
Right.
And whether it's going to happen in that particular way.
Right.
It'll be really, really interesting. I know for many years we've heard about a new kind of currency coming out in the North America, on the North American continent, the Amero.
Right.
Do you think that that's what's going to replace the dollar?
Well, they talk about that in the report, and apparently the powers that be had planned on doing that, and everything that they planned to do has kind of has been blocked because events have kind of overtaken them, and they haven't been able to really unfold their plans at doing these things. So what they seem to indicate is that anything that they do now is kind of a waste of time and money. So they can't really stop what's coming. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And there's supposed to be some kind of anarchistic movement this is kind of the picture that I get. And this is just a synopsis and my own take without reading in fine detail what they mention, but that with the collapse of the dollar, that a lot of these programs that have been private and secret, and a lot of the activities of the various governments will be shed off because they won't be able to afford them. I mean, they'll have their problems just running the government. And so all of these programs that have been funded by black dollars and secretly are going to all of a sudden have people coming out of the woodwork to expose the truth. And so there's going to be somebody is going to break through that eggshell, and the media, which has been controlled, is going to finally, there will be a crack in that, and they will be able to start telling the truth and not just what the powers that be want us to hear. So when people start hearing from people who know on the inside, and it's backed up by other people that are coming out to share their information because it's the right thing to do, there will be enough evidence so that it will be undeniable. And that in turn creates anger and kind of a mob mentality. So there may be some kind of anarchistic period that will briefly occur. Who knows?
Look, that's all possible. When I think about how we might work with abundance in the future rather than money.
Right.
I can see some of the transformations happening at this time already, and it's to do with what I'm seeing is a lot of different groups of people are coming together to look at sharing wealth or abundance, and that's to do with natural resources. It's to do with the resources that people have within themselves in terms of their skills and their gifts that they want to share. And I think that's really at the heart of what these transformations are about. It's really about us all recognizing that we all have something unique that we've developed or brought in with us when we were born that we can share with others to support and uplift and resource others in the ways that can be beneficial to them. And I've seen some great stuff happening within the food industry. There's a group of people over in LA who've started this thing called Fallen Fruit, and they take people around on nighttime tours. They start at dusk, and they've plotted all of the places around LA where there are public fruit trees. And
oh yes, I heard about that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And so wherever there are public fruit trees, that fruit is available for free.
Yeah.
So these people take people around. They tell them where the public fruit trees are, and everyone takes home some fruit. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's also a website, another initiative started in the USA. It seems that there are so many light workers over where you live.
Oh, yeah.
It's really inspiring to see how people are choosing to use their energy in these new creative ways. It's so fantastic. But there's a website now where you can register, and if you have a fruit tree or you have a crop of some kind and you have an excess of that crop, you can, and these are for, home gardens and very small farmers. If you have an excess, what you can do is tell people on the site, look, I've got too many tomatoes, but I need some apples. Has anyone got some apples? And so if you've got some extra apples and you need some tomatoes, then you can do a swap, or you can, sell them if you want to. It's for people to decide for themselves how they want to do the trade. And it's working great. In I think just 3 months, they've had 5,000 people register on the site.
Wow.
And so these are the transformations that I really like to consider when consider being the way that we will transform our approach to money, rather than just thinking about it in that very linear way of, we need a currency.
Right, exactly.
Or we're going to go back to the barter system. It's not as simple as that.
Right.
It's really, I think, more about us coming up with higher, more creative solutions to the way that we distribute resources. And I think at the heart of that is going to be an acknowledgement within each one of us that we are one. And that as we support and resource one another in whatever way that we can, whatever we are going to be in need of will be there for us, you know, and so much of the journey that we're all on at the moment is so much about trusting that all of our needs are going to be met, and to recognize that those needs are being resourced to us in a non-linear way. That if we simply align our intention with I guess, trust and faith that we are being sourced by our God presence, and that is completely unlimited, and it is totally abundant.
Exactly.
Then, you know, that's the way we're going to change and transform our approach to how we get on with, you know, whatever it is we need.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a bit of a rant there, but I guess it's something that I've been thinking about a lot.
That's a good rant, and I agree with you. Another example is the person in Bangladesh who began the microloans.
Oh, I know. Isn't that fantastic?
It is just amazing. You know, to beggars, you know, it might be a $5 loan, but it's all done on trust, and they have expanded to the extent where there's no profit involved. And the money that they get, they use to develop businesses which don't make a profit. They invest in another business to feed the people that are, and they sell it at a reasonable price, which is a minimal amount, and then the money is all put back into the system. So by removing the profit from the system, they have people now that work for the bank that go out to the beggars and collect their money with, you know, their interest or whatever it is. And they have like a 98% recall of all these loans. And, you know, how many banks can say that when they're gouging at 30-some-odd% and trying to get more? And the greed has become so pervasive that they have forgotten, you know, that they are simply cutting off their own feet. So I think that we're going to get to a point where, you know, the profit system is going to collapse and the heart system is going to start taking over, which is laying the foundations now. Doctors Without Borders, Architects Without Borders, you know, and free energy is going to be, or at least almost free energy, is just around the corner. You know, it's been suppressed.
Actually, you've reminded me about the couch surfing website as well. When I was in the States, I used that website to find a place to stay in Seattle, and ended up meeting someone so fantastic. You know, that my whole trip there was just, you know, made so much better than it ever could have been if I'd stayed in a hotel. So if anyone is traveling at the moment and hasn't heard about the couchsurfing.com website, I urge you to go and have a look at it, because when I look at the profiles from all of the people who are offering beds for people to stay in their part of the world, the generosity and the trust that's there to let complete strangers into their homes is another sign of this ascension process that we're all participating in, whether we know it or not.
Yes, right. Exactly.
We're all feeling it on some level.
Yes, yeah. Why, even me this year, I felt this intense urge to complete a vegetable garden, and what happened was all of my pine trees died because there was a Japanese beetle that killed them all.
Wow.
So I had something like 12,
your pine trees are huge.
And you've seen them.
I have.
They were all in the vegetable garden, and they all died one after another because my dad planted Japanese pine trees. And so this Japanese pine beetle just completely destroyed them. So I was so fortunate to have a wonderful neighbor who volunteered to help me at a reduced cost, and literally sawed them all down, cut them up, and we, burned them up. And so now, as a result, I have a space where I have planted green beans in the ground and snow peas and artichokes and strawberries and some other things, and this is my first year of a garden, which will then be shared with those who don't have as much. So, I'm getting to realize one of my dreams here on my own property by having something die and something else is being reborn, like the phoenix from the ashes.
Well, it must be lovely tending your garden and seeing all of these things growing and being able to, I guess in a month or so you'll be able to do your harvest. That'll be exciting.
Yes, it will be. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I've been transitioning for the last couple of months into eating mainly raw foods. And it's been something that I had, well, before it started, I had no idea how passionate I would become about it. It was like something just got hold of me, and all I could think about was eating raw.
Yes.
So maybe at some point you're going to have a similar type of experience with enjoying the bounty from your own garden. But it's something that I think I've really felt inclined to do because of the high level of life force vibration that's in the food.
Yes, I agree.
Since I've been doing this, I can't even begin to describe how fantastic it's felt. And for me, as someone who's very interested in consciousness and raising consciousness, it's been almost like I don't have a choice. I have to do this, and every cell in my body is craving uncooked food. It's been really good to see the raw movement over the last few years just explode. And here in Australia, it's massive. I was actually last weekend at a raw food cooking class, and there were 100 people there, and the people who ran it didn't advertise. They have a mailing list and a website which they promoted it through, and besides that it was simply word of mouth. So it was really just brilliant to see so many people turning up who were very, very, very interested in creating such a, for the Western world at least, a radical change to their diet.
Yes. And I feel the same pull that you've been feeling as well. Have you read the Anastasia books?
Yes, I have. Actually, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that was what really started it all off for me.
Yeah. Those are paradigm changing. Yes, exactly. And of course, you've had people like Jasmine on your show in the past too, who's a breatharian, and I saw her at the Mount Shasta event with David Icke and a few others. I can't remember. And Jean-Claude Coven was there too. But Jasmine was just vibrant. And as you know, she's a breatharian. I don't think we need to go that far yet, but she's able to pull the energy from from what we perceive to be air. And this may be a direction that the new human is going in. I don't know. It's certainly, we're headed into a natural, things that are the highest vibration possible.
Well, we are, I believe, many of us have been in the process of creating new pathways, I guess you could call them, nadis, or meridians, in our light bodies that are connected to our ability to breathe in pranic energy directly from the air. If we could see it, we would see cosmic particles composed of light. Unfortunately, our third-dimensional eye apparatuses
Right.
aren't quite there yet. I think for some people they might be, but I know certainly for myself, I'm not quite there yet where I can perceive prana in the air. But if you could see it, you'd be able to see that chi, life force, prana, whatever you want to call it, as light. And our etheric bodies are also called light bodies. And what the light body wants as it's advancing and going through various levels of upgrading is to breathe in more light. So it makes sense that there would be examples of a future human prototype on the planet now to hold the space for others who in the future would like to align with that space. And so perhaps you and I are both, going through that next step in wanting to take in more light, and we're doing it via eating living foods. Maybe the next step for us, I'd like to think, would be to just directly draw that light in through our pores. The beautiful lady who started the yoga school where I trained here in Melbourne, Gita Yoga, went through a series of operations due to tuberculosis when she was very, very young that ended up leaving her with quarter of a lung. And for the last 30 years of her life, she really, she had a quarter of a lung, and yet she ran a yoga school, she taught classes every day, she led a very, very active life, and she had managed to get to that place of drawing the pranic energy directly in through her pores. Wow. So yes, there are examples, there have been examples of people who can do it, who are doing it, and it's nice to know that they're out there, because one day it might be us.
Yes. Well, yes. Yes, I think it could be. So, have you been doing any research on 2012 at all, and the possibilities that we might be experiencing at that time, or have you moved more into being in the now and just living fully in the moment?
Well, when I think of 2012, I think of 2012 as a timeline, and I think of that as an ascension timeline. So rather than putting any particular emphasis on that date as a point in time where something major is going to happen, I'm approaching it in terms of it as a path that we are on right now, and that path is the path of ascension. And so, as I said earlier, we can participate in this, consciously or not, and those of us who are doing it in a participatory level, where we are very actively doing clearings on our emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies, and of course our physical body, so that we can really be the anchor points, I guess you could say, for higher dimensional energies, higher consciousness. I guess you could say that there's a group of people on the planet who are very, very active on that timeline. But no, I don't think of it as a point in time where there's going to be some massive event. The massive event's happening right now. All we have to do is look around. It's happening right now.
Yes, it does seem that way.
If I were to think of it as some kind of a time thing, if you wanted to put it in those terms, I would like to think of 2012 as being the year when, and it's only just such a short amount of time away, where a critical mass of humans are really vibrating and being directed by their God presence, so that the rest of humanity can then go, oh my God, Literally, oh my God. This is what it's all about. And maybe we will get to that point where we have transformed the way that we do things, the way that we live, the way that we are being with ourselves and with each other, that the world really is a completely different place to be than it was in 1987 when the harmonic convergence occurred and kicked off really a 25-year cycle of massive, massive planetary transformation.
Yes, yeah. And of course, there's that element of things speeding up as we reach that point too, that numerous cycles, according to the Mayan calendar, will be condensed further and further as we approach, Terence McKenna called it time zero.
Yeah, you know, that's actually something that I think about every now and then, and I do sort of kind of go, what's going to happen? Because when those cycles get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter as we get to 0, on the Mayan calendar,
right.
The acceleration in our consciousness apparently magnifies by, I think it's 1,000?
Yes.
Like, you know, it's 1,000 times higher in octave, or maybe 10 times higher in octave. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, we go up and up and up and up in octaves of consciousness.
Yeah.
And when you think about the cycles of time in this last 26,000-year period, while the precession of the equinoxes has been occurring, when we go back to that very first part of this cycle and the level of consciousness, you know, we can see clearly how we have risen in octaves. You know, the way that we were back then, the way that the planet was back then was so much slower, really, in every way than it is today, in terms of consciousness. And now with the computing speeds that we're achieving, the way that we have turned to the mineral kingdom and begun to really understand how its vibrational properties can work with us, and we see that very much in the computer industry as well. The way that we're turning to light technologies in healing and sound technologies in healing and in other processes. The way that we are, you know, working with nanotechnology, it's so clear how things have changed vibrationally. So, you know, this last run towards 2012, we're going to see those cycles increasing in interval and in vibration. So, yes, I don't know what it's going to look like. It's very exciting.
It's going to be a bumpy ride. Well, you know,
hopefully, at some point it'll stop being bumpy and it'll just start to feel like we're flying.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, actually, you know, when you get into a jet plane and, you know, it starts down the runway and you can feel every little thing in the tire, and then it goes plunk, 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 and then it goes faster, and then everything vibrates, and you feel like the plane's going to fall apart. But there's that moment when it pulls up into the sky and you just go whoosh. And that's kind of the moment that I'm thinking it's going to be like. That there's going to be a point at which the difficulties and the struggle and the resistance and everything will just fall away, and it will just be a smooth ride, and we'll never have to go back to the way.
I think, you know, up until now, we've all had experiences where that's been the way. You know, we've had days where it's been like that, or we've had moments where everything's just come together to make a miracle happen, you know, something so incredible that was exactly what we needed at that time. And so we've all had a taste of it. And I think that I know that the energies that we need for that to be our normal way of living are all here right now. And all we need to do is, with our intention, choose to align with them.
Yes.
That's simple.
Yes, yes.
So the more we can, just know that whatever we need is available to us, the more we will see that reflected back to us in our lives, our day-to-day lives. And I've made it, I've made it something that I intend to do every single day, and I've been doing that for a long time now, where I just choose to be that way, and I choose to see life that way. And the more that I do that, the more things are being reflected back to me, the more that I am being supported in magical and miraculous ways. And it really is just about our intention and doing whatever it is that we can to keep the pathway clear for that God presence of us to come through and to be, what is directing us in every moment.
Well, the God presence has just come through right now, and it is telling me that it's time for us to go.
Well, it's been lovely chatting with you again. I'm glad that I could be here today, so thank you so much, Lance.
Oh, thanks a lot, Liz. I just love you, and I enjoy every conversation or, energy exchange that we have. So let's do it again soon.
Okay.
All
right. Take care of yourself. Much love to you, and thank you to all of the listeners.
All right. Thanks again, Liz, and good night, everybody.